April 16th, 2024, despite what the agenda says, is called to order. All right, we have everybody here. I'm echoing.
Yes, I'll fix that.
As long as you're the good Karen, and not the even. Wow, something. Are we good? Nope.
You need your microphone on your laptop.
Okay.
Genius.
I mean, I hear it.
All right, roll call, we're all here. Agenda review. Everyone take a look at the agenda. Are there any changes we'd like to make to the agenda? All right, we're going on. Review the meeting notes for the March 2024 meeting. Did anyone have any adjustments, changes, edits that they needed for the last set of meeting notes? All right, I'll take a
Move that we
motion.
accept them? Second.
All right, so Maurice moved. Dan second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, good, we've done that. All right, today, so we do not have, as you can see, a discovery session on the agenda for today. What we wanted to do was take just a little bit of time to kind of go over where we've been with the discovery sessions. And I know there's a list of more that we'd like to do. I think Drew, you had an idea of some more. We'll talk about that tomorrow. I had put some notes in for taskers in one of the attachments for tomorrow's strategic session meeting. But I wanted to get everyone's sense of, are you finding the discovery sessions helpful? Are there things that we should do to run them differently? Are we hitting the right notes? Is it giving you information and or ideas that can be used as we put together a strategic plan and tactical actions for the county?
I'm in favor of it. I think you're very open.
I agree. And I spoke with Chip on that very same topic about when he was here with us last time. And I think that one needs to be repeated, and perhaps others might need to be repeated, because we had the introductory discussion for some period of time. But how many times have you been in a discussion with somebody, you had an agenda, and then all of a sudden some words fall out of somebody's mouth and you go, aha, wait a second, there's a point in here that I didn't catch. I think that would be useful, in particular with that particular group.
So another one, or make them longer in our additional meeting, in our existing meetings?
Another one,
Okay.
because you need a time gap. Because if it's just continuous in one session, you're not gonna have that, oh, we didn't say this last time thing. Because they're not, that's not the way.
So we can digest what we heard,
Yes.
right? Take a look at what's there, and then invite people back to have a
Yes.
second round conversation.
Yes.
Okay. Melissa, your thoughts?
With predetermined questions, so that they don't feel like they're wasting their time.
That's a good idea.
So we'd like to have you come back. Your session caused us to think about things a different way, and these are the questions that we'd like to get, have a longer discussion about.
That's a great idea, because we haven't given them questions ahead of time before they come here.
Right.
We don't want them to just be like, oh, look, you're coming here to like bring position or, Dominion, to get Dominion. We're giving them an idea about what we want to talk about, so they don't come in here.
At least for the second session.
So, no, that's a good idea
I don't
for,
think the first one really truly is a discovery session, but the second one, if we're going to delve into
More
larger.
nuts and bolts.
Right.
And like I was talking with Chip, it was like, it's in those nuts and bolts that other opportunities will be discovered. A guy does something, you've heard the statement, technology is that thing that you don't know how you live without, once you get it. Well, that's the same phenomenon with just about everything. So they don't know what will help them until somebody actually speaks up or has a thought about it that's, in all likelihood, somebody like us that's not even involved with that industry. So it's just reinforcing what I was already saying, is that more discussion is better.
so question for you guys then, because we were gonna have a bank conversation, and oh, by the way, there's a new group now that, is it Primus or Primus? Primus. So Primus Bank started the Northumberland County Advisory Group. And I think it'd be good to get a meeting, maybe not all of us, but Robert, I don't know if you want to handle, but get a conversation with them to understand what they're trying to learn about the community, how they're trying to help them, and what we can do to partner. One of the things the planning commission had asked us to do was look at banks and what can be loaned. I know we had a health, you'd suggested not VCU, somebody for help.
Either VCU Health or Biosecure was to have somebody come in to, like the discussion we were having with the warden, what is keeping anybody from getting into it? Well, what's keeping us from getting more medical services around here?
Yeah.
Because you hear everybody say, I can't get a doctor's appointment, I'm sick and I can't get an appointment.
Okay, so
I'm
bank-
dead."
Right.
Yeah.
Right, bank, medical, I know we wanted to talk to the school with the internships. Do we proceed with those like 3 limited ones? Or do you want us to start kind of looking at some of the ones that, do we proceed with 3 new ones before we start recapping? Or do you want us to proceed with the new ones interspersed with a recap?
Mix them up.
Mix them up?
On the banks, I got a phone call from Truist, your office, by the way, because that's what they do when you're a business and you've got an account with them. And so the subject came up. I said, how come you guys aren't here in Northumberland County? They said, well, there's certain things we look for. I said, before you go into detail, I need you to think about it, because the reason you chose not to stay in Northumberland County is important. It's not so much about what attracts a bank or all that stuff, but what's keeping the banks from wanting to be here.
You're getting into a very big question here, the distinction between a big regional bank and a community bank. And I'm not sure regional banks are gonna serve any purpose for us because we're just not big enough. The community banks are the ones more likely to invest here.
That's kind of an obvious situation, but the discussion I was having with her was, they used to be here and they pulled out.
Yeah.
They were regional then.
BB&T.
Yeah, they were BB&T. I don't think that they ever put a Truist.
No.
But they effectively pulled out. In fact, it's the funniest thing in the world. SunTrust and BB&T get together, call themselves Truist, and suddenly there's less than half of the units that they used to have.
But what Maurice, I'm getting at, what are we trying to accomplish by even finding out why they left? I mean, if the issue is circulation of capital in the geography, we shouldn't have a problem with that with the local banks. Or maybe we do, but we need to
I was
investigate with
just
them.
looking to get the answer to the question
Okay.
from them.
Okay.
Because she made it sound a little bit different than what you're pointing at. Just certain things like opportunity for growth. That was one that she brought up. She says it's not here. Okay, exactly what are you saying? That's the kind of question I wanted to have. I didn't want to have that discussion without
Okay.
this crowd.
Okay, so what I'll do, Robert, we'll put together.
So I have I'll send out the list again, the current pick list that I propose we could add to it.
Isn't that in the read ahead for tomorrow? Didn't I put that in this?
I think it is.
Perhaps you did.
Yeah, I
It's
think,
the other one that I sent to you as well.
Yep.
And perhaps what we do is in this session, we can sit down and say, okay, let's schedule this one for the next meeting.
yeah,
And then we could do that, or let's do the follow on and we could come up with follow-up questions.
okay.
Procedurally.
That's so we can do that tomorrow. And I am gonna reach out to, school ends May 16th. I don't know if we'll be able to get Mr. Lightfoot here, but I think it's really super important that we partner with them for the fall with what he's trying to do with the internships. And so I wanna get that here. Okay.
Karen, one thing that you might want to jot a note that we might want to explore too, and it's, the only reason I know this is I've got personal experience with them, and I have nothing gained by what I'm getting ready to say, so there's no conflict of interest. VCB Bank is the only bank that I'm aware of in Northumberland County that does not sell their commercial paper on the secondary market. William Smith is the vice president in charge of commercial lending, and they do an outstanding job. They visit me almost monthly, wanting to know if I want any money, which I don't, but my point is VCB is very vested and holds paper on quite a few small businesses here that I'm aware of, and William, I'm sure, would be more than happy to come into here, because as far as information for us, he may be a wealth of information to find out what that local bank is, where they hold those notes here within the county. They don't sell them off on the secondary markets. That might be a great resource for fledgling businesses.
That was my point with Maurice as well. I mean, that's exactly.
Yeah, because you never see that with a big box bank.
Right.
Yeah, and I think, I understand where you come from. I think it's well taken.
Well, what's confusing is that we don't know who is I know William, and I know he works with,
He's a
Bank of
good guy.
Lancaster.
Yeah.
But, that's, what's the name of that bank?
It used to be the Bank of Northumberland, then it went to, now it's currently Blue Ridge now.
Blue Ridge, right, that's Blue Ridge.
Yeah, Blue Ridge, yeah. And they are very, now his forte is, that's all he does, he's vice president in charge of business lending. So my only point, maybe inviting him in here for a discussion session, I'm sure he would be happy to do it, but it might give us some information that if we're staff too, that if a business comes in there, I can tell you, I have used them before, I think they're fantastic, they're very easy to deal with. In fact, because they hold the paper in-house, there's a whole lot there's underwriting standards now, of course, since 2007, but it's been my experience, they're very, very committed to helping local businesses, and it's much easier than it would be a big box bank.
Community banks, exactly right.
100%. So I think he could be a tremendous resource to us. And I've got his contact information. If you'd like, I can send it to you all if you all want.
Robert, can you check, Drew, I don't know if this might be with the county attorney on one thing for me, please, or whichever attorney we need to get consulted. If we reach out to one bank, do we have to reach out to all?
That's a good question.
Because I don't want it to make an appearance at the county through the EDC. Favoring one bank over another.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right, because they're competitors. I get that there might be community banks versus what you call the corporate banks, whatever the right terms are. Regional, excuse me. I don't want to create an impression that there's favoritism, and I don't know if that's a problem or not.
Well, I think it's a valid point, and my suggestion would be is surely check with the county attorney, but I don't think you can go wrong by just inviting all of them.
Yeah,
Right,
panel.
we just invite all of them, then
Panel.
it comes. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool, then never mind, don't worry about it, we'll just do it all. Okay. And then Melissa, I know you're the expert in that area, so I'm gonna lean on you for probably some questions that.
Yeah, and then also because they're holding the actual paper, is because when it's a bank product, you don't have to sell it. to
Right.
someone else. So it's their own bank portfolio
Right.
is what we actually call it. And then also the CRA Act, the Community Reinvestment
Oh, okay.
Act. A lot of those banks. And then right now, what we're targeting is low to moderate income geographical areas
Yeah.
is what they'll.
He met with me actually 2 weeks ago. He just came down for a visit. I was working at the event center, and I briefed him while we were slow walking the campground and everything, and talked to him a little bit about housing possibility and stuff. And he was very insightful, very positive about that. So yeah, I think he'd be a good one to have on.
Oh, yeah.
And then Lynn, you had an idea, and I don't know if this fits with what Drew's thinking about with the medical, about, what'd you call it, mobile,
Mobile medical.
yeah.
Back in the day, long ago,
So you're talking about last week?
pretty much,
Okay.
when, I'm talking 40 years ago, we had vans that went around, that had an x-ray, a portable x-ray machine, a small utilitarian lab, a doc and a nurse. They drive and park, and it was a regular schedule. And I think right now that medicine is so corporate and the reimbursement for services is so skinny that if we could, and I think VCU may already have
They do.
this, talk to VCU and say, look, these are the services we need. We're the oldest or second oldest, depending on what source you find, county in Virginia. Not everyone has a house on the water or a car. What about we set up a schedule with you to provide medical services throughout the community on a rotating basis? It's an and it's a good deal for them, because in the past, again, back in the day, the hospitals, the doctors, not the hospitals did not own urgent care centers. Doctors started urgent care centers on their own as their own LLC or a private corporation. And they used it as a feed to feed patients to their home hospital emergency room or specialty services. In this particular case, with a mobile unit, VCU wouldn't have to have a bricks and mortar presence. They could do screening, they could do, some light urgent care, someone cut their finger on that particular day, they could probably suture it, but anything would be funneled directly to VCU without the need to build bricks and mortar. it's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah.
It's a staffing issue again. I think we're gonna keep hearing that theme, but it's a good point. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it is a staffing issue. However, if they're, if they're keeping people out of the emergency room because they have the services available on a regular basis, the emergency rooms historically, and I don't know how it is now because I haven't been clinical or business side of things for a very long time, but emergency rooms historically were used in lieu of a family physician.
Right. Especially by Medicaid.
And especially with kids. You know, a kid with an asthma attack who didn't have a doctor ended up in the emergency room for 6 hours with, you know, a gazillion-dollar bill. So if we could do some preventative care, some screening, and some regular will be your doctor type of things, without the need for bricks and mortar, it seems to me that it's a win-win situation.
Don't they go to the school now with some screening and dental work and optical?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that the school just got a $2,500 vision grant or an appropriation for the vision grant, but that's an annual grant that is run through the school. I'm talking about a larger population, especially the older folks that don't have a ride, don't have someone who's available during, you know, regular medical office hours.
Last spring, they offered something like that. I think it was in Warsaw. And the advertisement was first come, first served. It was all day. I think it was the whole weekend, in fact. I'll have to look for the notes for that. But they offered exactly what you said: free medical, free dental, free eye exams, free, I think, even OBGYN support.
They had the whole thing. It was a full spectrum of stuff. The Moose participated in that. We put together food for the people that volunteer for that.
Sure.
And it's a rural community health.
Yeah, I read it on the paper.
And instead of doing it annually, it'd be nice if they have something like that quarterly, what you're getting at.
Well, that's one avenue, but the other avenue is to have a mobile unit that isn't quite as fully staffed as that. I mean, there was a woman at the last one who had every tooth in her head pulled.
Yeah.
In the parking lot?
Well, in the dentist tent, because every one of her teeth needed to be pulled, so they pulled them.
Damn.
And that was no charge to her. And they made a follow-up appointment with her to get dentures. So, I mean, it was a very full service type of thing. And those folks do it all on a voluntary basis. I think they had 2 last year, or very close to a year apart. And that went through the community college, I think, coordinated that. So, I mean, there's one big annual event, but that doesn't address the ongoing regular medical care that our community needs to avoid having to go to that thing and have every tooth in your head pulled up.
Yeah,
With
I mean,
that-
just like right now with the allergies and things of that nature, you have to get on the list and wait to get
Exactly.
into the
That's what I was gonna ask
doctor.
you, if that would,
It's rough
okay.
with some people, those allergies. like
Exactly.
We have a new medical, it's called East Coast Medical Arts, it's opened up in Cali about 6 months or so ago. And I just as this sidebar for you guys, I've been extremely impressed with her. I had about 2 weeks ago, I had a near sinkable episode and I was able to call her up on the phone and get in same day. Dr.
She's a
Amy,
nurse practitioner. She's really good. You're right.
she is good, yeah,
So she's gonna eventually be swamped like everybody else.
yeah, yeah.
What is the name of that place?
East Coast Medical,
What's her name?
Dr. Amy
Amy,
Farr.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I like about her is she's a mix between traditional and holistic medicine, so she gets it.
Right.
You know.
And the one that,
But you're right, she will, as soon as word gets, a lot of people don't know because they really don't advertise much. As soon as they realize that she's there, it's gonna be like everything
You know, I don't know if she's changed, but the time I went to visit, right before she opened, she said they're not accepting insurance or Medicare. It's all cash.
They are doing insurance now. Yeah, I think they're working on, Medicare. I don't think they're quite there yet but it's close, yeah.
And the one that's in Warsaw, that doctor, he wanted, he rather see self-employed people. And let's say if your blood pressure medication is $110, if you go to your physician, it's 20, and he'll give you the same prescription.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't like,
Is that
what
Dr.
the
Cameron?
I think so.
He doesn't want to do all the paperwork and all the other crap that's
Yeah,
happening.
he
wants
doesn't want to go
correct
by
facts.
those rules, he just, you know, wants to help you.
And it's sad
You know,
though, Karen,
not
that's
dig in
like
your
that.
pocket.
And it's sad.
You know, I had a conversation with Dennis there in Cali. He's been my dentist for.
Oh, he's mine too. He's great. Loves rock and roll music too. Love that
We
guy.
were talking about, you know,
Can't tell
the
him.
mess that the insurance
Yeah.
companies have those guys in.
Yeah, yeah.
I just asked him straight up, would you be willing to just work on pricing with people if it wasn't for insurance? He says, yeah. There's some people that can afford to pay more, there's some people that can't afford to pay at all.
That's absolutely right. He gets it. He gets it. Yeah, he's good, Dennis.
Okay, so we will add that to the list. So tomorrow we'll dig into that a little deeper. What else? Any other thoughts on the discovery sessions? I'm not gonna go to the joint meetings just yet because I want to finish up on the discovery. Any other thoughts on the discovery sessions?
Well, both as part of the discovery sessions and private discussions I know we've had with others, this underlying theme of workforce that keeps coming up.
Yes.
So what are we gonna do to get to the bottom of this? Is there something we do with the schools and with RCC or what?
I think there's a little bit more, just,
For tomorrow.
those are the core, but I think there's a little bit more. I was talking to Keith up there at Cygnus just the other day. Because I was making the observation that every single one of his employees is helpful, every single one, and they stay. Well, that's huge, because most employers around here have a hard time keeping people when they hire them, they can't get them to work.
Yeah.
So the question is what is he doing different?
A lot of
This.
family stuff there. That's what kept Charles successful at Crazy Crab was family. And his family's getting too old now and so he's not reopening.
So Crazy Crab is not reopening.
He's thinking about it, but he didn't want to.
Wow. Isn't that a common theme though,
So
too?
Precisely.
He tells me that most of his hires are just coming out of the high school. They're not necessarily family. They
So
might be
we
close
will-
friends.
Yeah, and your point, John, is, you know, we're balancing between the mom and pops and them wanting to stay and us wanting to support them, but as they're aging, so are their children, and they're not wanting to
Yeah.
run the business.
And you can
Right.
sort of see that with the oystermen we had here.
Yeah.
It's a family business.
Right.
And,
Kellums.
they want to get the H-1B visas, but even those are not that reliable because you don't know seasonally whether the right ones are going to be available.
Right.
So is there any growth potential beyond a family, for a family business? What do they want? They want reliable help that they can afford. We ain't providing that.
And this is something that we could probably address with BEDP, and see what kind of programs they could help us instill, or what recommendations or advice they could give us to try and bump up the work.
Well, we also had some input from the Board of Supervisors about working with the Department of Social Services, right? So that's on our list. Again, this gets to the tactical, so tomorrow I think we're gonna dig into a lot of this more about
Sure.
really getting down to the nitty-gritty. What is something that we can do versus what's a little bit outside the scope we're gonna need some help with, but some tacticals. And I mean, that's a big nut to crack.
Yeah.
So it's not lost, it's there.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's still there, and I just add this, you know, Gloucester High School did a lockdown this morning because one of the guys that's on the Board of Supervisors, his company is actually doing some of the renovation to the school. Well, two of his employees got into it with the power gun, the stapler gun, or the.
Oh, nail gun.
With the nail gun.
Oh, my
And then the
God.
other one actually pulled out a real gun. And they locked Gloucester High School down. You know, that is
Oh my
ridiculous.
God.
Awful. Yeah, so I mean, it's just, what do you do? Those two should be fired.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
But they probably can't replace them.
Yeah.
So then
No,
what do
you
you do?
can't, so what do you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of feel like we're swimming upstream and the current's
We
moving
are.
faster.
Yes, we are. Okay.
all right. No, it's something, so in terms of who we might want to talk to, I think that's gonna be a broader conversation.
Mhm.
For what it's worth, I'm having a meeting with the president of RCC next week, I think it is, and it's on a different matter than around scholarships, but I can broach the subject with her and see if she wants to participate in some discussion.
That's one of the ones that's on our list, because we want to jump the preparation to licensing, right? We want to bridge that gap, because people go through the preparation, but then they don't get licensed. Thank you. The second part, I guess, that question is the joint meetings. So we've had several joint meetings now with the planning commission, the board of supervisors, and us. The first one was designed to get us all together so we could talk about future, et cetera. The second one on solar with Dominion, I think had some economic development nexus. I'm not clear, unless Drew, you can shed some additional light about the EDC's potential role in the meter meeting, because I didn't see the connection
There
there.
isn't one there.
No.
Okay, so
I think it was cushion.
right, what I wanted to do was try to figure out, I think there are opportunities for all three of the groups to get together, and John, you might have some thought on this. I'm not, I don't want to start turning down the board and the planning commission if you think there's EDC value in being there. I also don't know if we want to set the precedent where all these meetings have to be joint, so.
If I could, I think the only connection was when we had the first joint meeting and we were talking about bringing Dominion in for solar and smart meters in one discussion. And they wanted everybody there for that one because the solar
had it,
impacts
right,
everything. And because they split it out into two meetings,
okay,
they just said, okay, you were invited to it originally, and since we were doing it as a separate
Okay.
meeting, we want to continue the invitation over because of that. Is the only connection I can see, and that may well have been, they didn't want to slight anybody.
all right, it was a holdover, okay.
That's the only connection I see.
And Drew, the deal with the solar, and I just want to make sure I've got this right in memory banks back here, is basically there was state legislation that has basically taken away the authority of the local jurisdiction to say yes or no.
For some classes,
For some classes.
Yes.
What's the difference, John, between?
You're talking really big solar farms versus if you have a business and you want to put something out back behind your property, to power your own business, very different situation.
So that would have to go to you would have to get a conditional use permit for that.
Right.
But if it's something that's in the larger scope beneficial for the state, then it couldn't be turned down.
The distinction is a bit more tightly defined than that, but yes, there are places where the state law controls and the county can't override.
Okay.
So,
If I may, Karen, and the question you posed, I think what would be beneficial, and you and I've talked about this a little bit, rather than a joint meeting, because, Mr. Long, for example, is gonna get hung up on Burger King, that's just not productive at all.
McDonald's,
We talked Burger King.
oh, it was Burger King last time, right, because McDonald's wouldn't come. Never mind.
Would it make more sense for one or two of you, to get together with each of them individually to talk about what is their appetite for change and growth? We'll focus on the word change.
That's a really good idea.
Because
Wouldn't that be good as a joint meeting?
No,
because they pontificate
No.
and they don't really have a target. I mean, they see economic development as a good thing. But as Richard Haney said at the last joint session I was at, we did talk to Walmart, and all of our constituents were against it. If we had the McDonald's thing, I'm willing to bet we'd have the same thing. There'd be protesters running up and down the town. We don't need those people in here at all. So what is the tolerance here? What businesses are they willing to support? I did talk to Junior
really
Fisher
good.
about this once. When I was first getting to know him, and he said basically, look, we're an aquaculture county. We got tourism and all that. Let's figure out a way to grow that stuff. But there isn't tolerance for bringing in, somebody mentioned bringing in a data center, and that ain't gonna happen. We
don't have
could
to
even
do
get
that.
a clinic or a urgent care center, much less a hospital. It's just, some of these things are just too far out there.
Yeah.
So I think we need to test their tolerance, otherwise we're just beating our head against the wall.
I think John's absolutely
Come
right.
into play with the strategic session that we had together, and we're going through that to see what it is that we can actually do. I mean, unfortunately, it's not much that they want to do. And then there's some things that we just.
And they don't know what's possible either.
Exactly.
Well,
But
so-
what your suggestion breaks that cycle that I was talking about last month, because, we could sit here and wait for direction from the board.
you're gonna
It's
have
never gonna happen.
No.
we're not waiting. Right,
I'm not
yeah.
suggesting that we
Yeah.
would, no,
Yeah.
but I'm seeing where if we can engage them individually, we can break that cycle of waiting and possibly open the door to making suggestions. Because we see opportunities, not because we were asked to look at it.
Right.
They come up, they happen.
Right.
But even when we had the gentleman here, that talked to us at McDonald's, you know, he taught us a lot and, you know, because whether the board sees it or not, it was like, okay, we're almost like at a dead end.
Well, so that's a critical reason why I bring that up, and you're right on, because there's only one person on the board who apparently gives a shit about a fast food joint, and that's Supervisor Long.
Mhm.
I've talked to all of the others individually, and they said, ain't gonna happen, I have no interest.
You know, what about this? So we're,
You gotta take yourself out of that and look for the good of the people. you know?
Right.
and if we're getting ready to put tomorrow we're gonna have our strategic plan discussion, right? So we're gonna talk about 2030 goals, and then we're gonna talk about tactical actions. What do you guys think then about each of us, rather than having a joint meeting like we talked about? Because if you get the group think, then it might be a little different. What about if we each take that plan and meet with our individual supervisor and test those ideas out? Rather than have a big joint planning session meeting,
I think that makes a lot of
right?
sense.
So then we have something to show them, which says, look, these are some ideas we're thinking about.
Right.
These are some things we've looked at. This is what the discovery sessions have taught us. This is still yet where we need to go. And even though at the last Board of Supervisors meeting, Supervisor Brand brought up the idea about, look, we need to have a strategic direction about where the county wants to go. We may have to forego, if you will, the 2030 part of our plan and focus on a 2-year tactical action plan. So tomorrow when we get those tactical actions down on that big list that we have, then we take whatever we write up and meet individually with our supervisors to get their reaction. Because that, I think, would be more informative than another group session.
Well, what I like about that the most is it forces interaction between the district commissioners here and the elected representative. Because, you know, right now, the only time I communicate with my supervisor, Jimmy, is if there's an issue on something. That I like it. I think it's a good idea.
And to build on that, I mean, when Mr. Brand made that comment at a recent meeting, I started thinking, okay, Mr. Brand, this is the responsibility of the Board of Supervisors. A plan doesn't mysteriously show up. Yes, we could create one, but it all comes right back to what's their tolerance for change at this point. And so he seems to be, I mean, he was sort of leading the charge around McDonald's for a while there, but he said that ain't gonna happen. So, but what is his interest?
I think, and let me just say this real quick. I think the response from because I've heard from all the supervisors, with the exception, I think Mr. Long is very insightful on a lot of the stuff that he says. I really do think that they have seen so many of these conditional use hearings. I mean, I've seen enough of them now to where, you know, you could almost do this by how many people are sitting in there as to, you know, how this thing's going to go up or down. And I think he was expressing to you probably the political realities, and Maurice, you can speak to that. I mean, don't you agree? I think it's, you know, these guys are not, everyone that I've ever been to, and I'm sure there's an exception, but I don't know of it. If you have overwhelming community opposition, they're going to do the close quote right thing, even if they personally, you know, don't,
Right.
you know, and I think that's probably what he's, but it's point well
So-
taken.
I think on the conditional use permits, there are some that the people would have the board decline, but the board knows that they probably ought not to decline.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is you get a situation where you get a courtroom full of NIMBY.
Right.
And they'll have the public hearing and they'll table the vote until the next meeting when the public hearing part is over. Then there's the other ones, like the guy who wanted the meat plant. That one technically was declined for a technicality. Otherwise, I think at the second round, it would have passed.
Okay,
I want to go back to something you said. I think it makes a lot of sense to forego the long horizon plan in favor of a 2 to 5 year plan
Yes.
where we can prove our mettle and start to move things forward. I think historically, this committee has not really been a committee filled with action items. And I think to concentrate on a 2 to 5 year window gives us the opportunity to interact with the planning commission, with the supervisors, and with the other constituent organizations to actually move a thing, whatever that thing is,
Yes.
forward from the idea to the presentation, to the inception, to the end product, if you would. And I think that's important, not just for this committee in particular, but for the citizens, the banks, and the other stakeholders that will go into those projects, to see that we actually accomplish
Short-term goals.
Right, that was the annual, okay, so, because 5 years, believe it or not, is 2030. But I think it's a very, we haven't, this committee, it's been a while since this group has done a lot. So to set, tomorrow we'll just talk about, this is gonna be a 2-year, right? These are 2-year goals, and then these might be 5-year goals. They build on each other.
Right.
But we focus on, and then the point, John, you're making is, we take what we develop tomorrow, right? Once we write it up, we each meet with our supervisors to find out what the appetite is, where they see risk, where they see opportunity, and then we get back together.
Yes, I
And
think that's right.
it's better to do that way than, so thank you for the suggestion, than have it in a
Yeah.
group meeting, because then you just end up with, there was a lot that happened in that first meeting. There's a lot of good stuff that came out, but there was also a lot of,
Tangents.
here, everybody solve daycare, right? And you're just like.
I would also say that part of the 2-year, we're still discovering, and maybe we consider creating a survey, bringing someone in to create a survey, to send it out to the community and have them respond and get their input, get some of their feedback.
I think we should hold town halls.
Well, a town hall would be as
I
well
mean, I
too.
think there's things we could do in our, so again, we could talk about
Yeah.
some of this stuff tomorrow, but I think the idea of getting some tactical wins, right? If we can get some of the things that we talked about, like the what was it, the oyster branding, the medical thing, getting the internship with the school set up.
You know, it's a shame, to her point, it's a shame that the goals could be set consistent with the term of the current board of supervisors, 4 years. Right? Because you gotta start all over anyhow, right?
No,
They're staggered, that's right, that's right, that's
Okay.
right. That's
All right, good, so that's where we at, and then we'll just keep our eyes open if there's other joint meetings. I think, the other thing that we could do, like you're the liaison here, if the board of supervisors is open to it, if everybody wants to go and we have a joint meeting, then we can have a joint meeting. If it's something that we're not sure everyone wants to be at, then we can at least have a rep that goes to that meeting, so that the EDC is there, and then the rest of us can.
Well, Maurice came to our last meeting.
And I'll be there again this week.
So you're the planning commission guy, okay, good,
Okay.
Okay.
And on the joint meeting discussion, I personally see interdependencies between the planning and the EDC.
Yes,
And to that end, I would see, I don't know if it's permissible, but I would see the benefit from periodic working sessions between the two for more than just a liaison representative for one or the other.
Well, we're looking to their plan.
Yeah, Maurice, I would normally agree with you, but I think there's a certain amount of,
I wouldn't say schedule them arbitrarily, they would be
Yeah.
task-based.
there are members of the planning commission who have been there a while and who are just, they're purely reactive. I mean, that's kind of why I step forward, is I get
surely what?
reactive
Yeah.
to, technically the planning commission can take no action that was not first requested by the board of supervisors.
Right,
It's on our bylaws.
I get that.
So they set the agenda. Now, we've got a little bit of latitude at the edges, but that's partly why I've decided to come participate here of my own volition, to sort of figure out what are those things. But back to your point, and Drew, I wanted to ask you, I don't know what the comprehensive plan process is. I know Stuart's getting more into it now. I'd like to get together with you and him after I get back from London next week and talk about what the process is and how I can help, because I think that those need to be married up. And I don't want to interfere with Stuart's process, because I know that's a son of a bitch to do, but.
I'm not very familiar with what his processes are either, so I'd be interested in that meeting as well, just to get more knowledge on my side.
Okay, good.
While I had the floor, just something that's kind of overlaps the strategic, the discovery sessions and the joint meetings is we keep going back to the mom and pops are retiring and the kids don't want it, and workforce development will. If we're losing mom and pops, we support the ones that we have,
Yeah.
continue to support them. But we need to be thinking, how can we supplement them? If we can't get more mom and pops to take over or kids to take over, we still need those services. How can we slowly supplement those services back in, whether if we have to go the corporate route instead of the mom and pop route, we need to start having those discussions here and with the board members to where they're increase their tolerance for it.
And maybe get friendly with the idea of incentivization like we talked about.
I mean, because what you did with County Supermarket, I mean, it's the same concept.
Same
You
thing.
try to keep it mom and pop.
Yep.
And you had to go corporate with it.
Glenn Lester, another one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you're looking at, you're losing mom and pops.
Hmm?
Whether you want.
I can't because it won't pass the wife, but I was thinking about buying Glen Lester.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, well then we'll look at that segues right into Commissioner Corner. I think Maurice would like to report he's gonna buy Glen Lester.
No, I'm not gonna do it. I mentioned it to Cheryl once and that was it. It was just a passing thought at that point.
All right, so we are going into Commissioner's Corner. Lynn?
I made a phone call today to the Warsaw Town Administrator to find out if he, based on a conversation that I had with one of the supervisors who wanted to have a meeting with the Warsaw group to find out about how they did their revitalization and how they're keeping it going forward. So I made a phone call to the town administrator and also made a phone call to the Richmond County School Board. Not many people saw it probably this last year. The Richmond County LCI went up, just like our county LCI went up, which means that the amount of state and federal aid coming in goes down. Well, Richmond was able to get a waiver, and the waiver was based on the fact that 3% or greater of their residents didn't live here.
I'm sorry, did not live
Did
here?
not live here. 3% of the property owners,
In Richmond County.
3% or greater of the property owners did not live here.
Really?
This was their second.
Wow.
And so.
Really?
And so I called the director of finance for the school board to find out what process they used to get that waiver, because they were able to reduce their LCI by using that rule. And it would benefit this county
Yes.
by decreasing the amount of county funds required to the school board, because with that waiver, a certain extra percentage of state and federal funds would come into
Wow.
the school system. So those are the two phone calls I made.
What is LCI?
LCI is Local Composite Index. It's determined by three major factors. 50% of it is weighted toward property value. And so as things change, the LCI goes up or down based on the other factors. Our LCI is very close to the top of 0.8000,
Which means, yeah,
which means that there's a very limited amount of federal and state money that will, once we hit 0.8, which we probably will, based on it being a very large waterfront community, the amount of state and federal funds goes down, and the amount of county money won't necessarily go up to.
so in plain language, the state considers us, Northumberland County, with 11,000 people, as rich as Fairfax County with 1 million.
Our
That's the
LCI,
practicality of it.
our LCI tracks with Fairfax County.
Why, is that just because of incomes of
Oh,
people?
It
No,
has nothing,
property,
it has
Oh,
a limited portion of that is income, but 50% of it is weighted toward property.
Yeah.
well, good God, we've gotta have way more than, God, Maurice, what do you think? 15%?
15 to 20%.
That's what I'm thinking, 15 to 20%.
So the good news is, right, before we start getting on a tangent, so Lynn, thank you for that. That brings up actually something that I tomorrow, one of the conversations we're gonna have is about like division of duties and division of responsibilities. Because I know, Robert, you had on your list to call the Warsaw Town Manager, I had on my list, you and I were talking. Lynn kept conversation started because, you know, the board of supervisors had asked about it, and shame on me for not getting it moving. And again, she didn't know that you and I were working on that. So I think one of the things that we wanna do tomorrow is start splitting up like what we do and how we do it, so that we're not all calling the same people. It hasn't happened yet.
We don't wanna look like Keystone Cops.
Yeah, we don't want to look like the
I
tinfoil
prefer
crowd.
Bowery Boys.
So,
Yeah.
so thank you for doing that, and if they get
Yeah.
back with you, that's great. I know we also wanted to talk to the Gloucester people for Main Street. Frankly, I want to talk to the Callio people to see how Main Street worked for them. But again, we can't all be, now that we're a full board, full commission,
Right.
and I think we're all eager to do stuff. So thank you, Lynn, for bringing that up.
Yeah, good
And then
work.
you're
Good
good, your district's good with the tornado, everything's,
There was damage to buildings, but no one was hurt. Some of the rebuilding's already started, just the stuff that I see along the road. And yeah, for the most part, that's where it touched down.
Good news is the tornado took out some trees on the second fairway going up the golf course, so it's made my life easier.
Nice.
Next round, what's the number, 13 or 11? Hopefully fix
good
that.
God, we're done with that. All right, go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you for that information, but my question would be, and I know that we're jumping out there, we're movers and shakers and we're trying to get it done, but just finding that information and making those phone calls, isn't the board of supervisors supposed to be, doing some of these things to look out for the
And no
greater?
staff.
So that's what John's suggestion, there's a circular dependency that and the Board of Supervisors is sitting right at the apex of it.
Yeah, but this one, they asked us to do it.
But my thing is that, well, what do they do?
They have no staff, so they turn to county administrators and say, hey, go get somebody to do this, and they turn to the department directors to take care of it. Partly, you may have seen the capital improvement budget for capital expenditures. That goes through the planning commission. It's basically, we're the subcommittee of the board of supervisors. You perform a similar role because there's no staff, we're
Right.
basically staff.
That's, yeah, and this is
That's
why I took it
accurate.
at the joint meeting. That's why the list tomorrow, we have to go through and winnow down. Like what is in a 2-year plan, what is gonna be, because we can't possibly do everything they asked us to do in that planning session.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to prioritize it and then split it up to see where it fits.
And the board, when they have a formal discussion and which, in a formal meeting in which they need something done, he turns to the county they turn to the county administrator who does his magic, but that's basically how it works. It's county administrative form of government.
All right, and the only thing I had was that I spoke with, she's at the Northumberland Library.
Jane?
Jane. Right. And she was stating that, let her know if we had any elderly communities, they will take the library bus to those communities so that they can get, books and things of that nature, because it was one person that actually the tornado touched down beside her house as well, but I actually helped her get into the library, because she had to walk and she said she was a little off balance today. But, having them, come out, they'll come out with the truck to go to the neighborhoods and, deliver books and things of that nature, make it a little bit better for the elderly, so they don't have to drive to Eastville.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mhm. So I thought that would be good, and she was just saying, just let her know. And we
Good.
will do that.
Thank you. We just call them direct then or?
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sir Maurice?
I got nothing. My mom came to visit for a week and that just kind of nuked my entire disposition. However, the last few days, my garden is looking better, a lot.
Nice.
Is your mom interested in being an oyster manager?
That's choice. I like that.
Pops to go with mom.
Yeah.
My mom spent her entire career being the secretary to the chairman of the board of supervisors for Sacramento County. I learned a lot from her, a lot.
Training room. All right. Captain Dan?
I guess this is probably on a more of a personal note. The tornado that came down through Lockburg also came through Callio, and I just want to publicly say thank you to Drew and all the other people that staffed the Emergency Operations Center there during that thing. I really had the opportunity to see how devastating that thing was when the sheriff's department flew their drone up through there. I tell you, it is by the grace of God, there wasn't some loss of life serious, especially on Alpine Road. I think there's one house totally destroyed now, but I mean, guys, I rode back there the next day. There were oak trees that were 3.5, 4 foot in diameter, just twisted off like it was nothing. And interestingly, you were talking, John, about the Quinton Oaks. My old golf course is kind of it's just a group of woods that really separates it from there. I was mowing Sunday and something caught my eye in the woods, and it's about a 15-foot section of someone's wall with a window in it. That thing picked up from over there and deposited it right in the tree. Awesome thing. But those guys really did do a good job. Drew, I know it was a late night for you, but thank you for what you did and all the county staff and volunteers.
It was much more on Chief Balderson. He was heads up EMS services, and he oversaw the whole emergency operations center and the sheriff's department. It was Kelly volunteer.
Well,
It was the first time I've been involved in something like that, and I left there overly impressed with how organized it was, and just overwhelmed and in awe at just. And I've told Chief Balderson this, I've told Mr. Brand this, and others. I'm going up the road and I'm just sitting there thinking, we're there because it's part of our job. But there were so many volunteers that it wasn't their job, it was their duty. And just when you stop and think about how much time and effort went in on a volunteer basis in an emergency situation, it almost left me numb in a good way.
Well, and the one thing I will say about that, having served those roles over the years myself, your EOC, how it's set up and how it's run, the command and control of it is going to mean the difference of how well that emergency is managed and literally lives saved in some cases. But you guys did an awesome job. That's all, Karen.
And to add to that, I did get questions, did we have, were they notified in time, and things of that nature? I said, yes, because of the fact that it was constantly on the news, on the radio, on your phone everywhere. So yes, we were definitely
And I think Nino's, out of their own kindness of their heart, I think fed you guys that night.
I know somebody brought a bunch of pizza. We
Yeah.
had several different things, hot dogs and different things that they were.
Yeah.
Ladies Auxiliary was doing alongside it to keep us fed too, so.
Neighbors help neighbors.
Yep, that's what community.
I have only two things. So one, there's a new flower shop where Brits was. It's called The Bloom. So, yep, she moved right in and she's already got ads on the radio.
Okay.
So I'm gonna pop in there, say hello to her. And then two, I was invited to participate in a dinner evening that was a fundraiser kind of event for the YMCA roof for the pool. So they are looking to raise, I guess, around $1.5 million, so that they can then, it needs, I think, roughly 2 million to get where it needs to be, but if they raise 1.5 million, then they're willing to start so that they can get, and then they get the other half. They're hoping that they can start construction at the end of this pool season so that it'll be available for next year. So it was a group of people that got together. They've raised quite a bit of money already. They're looking to get the rest of it. It was a good presentation that, from the ED perspective, there's actually, I think, some opportunities for swim meets, right? To get different schools in here for swim meets, and then people will stay perhaps overnight to eat in the restaurants. They actually are looking for the McDonald's. They're looking for a couple of the boating organizations, fire organizations, et cetera, are looking for someplace where they can train, right? And they like to train in the quote unquote off season, and you can't do that in a pool that's not heated or enclosed. So it was a good conversation. There are quite a few people in attendance. I'm not exactly sure where their capital campaign is going to go. I did mention to her that perhaps we'd like her to come talk here. At this point, I don't think we want to consume her time with us because there's nothing we can do to help her. But I wanted to let you guys know, I think, Drew, you had brought this to us a couple months ago.
Yeah, a while back.
That's
actually.
why this folder was in there, because mine's in the car. So thank you, Dan. So they're making progress on it, and I think they went and looked at a couple places, I think in North Carolina and somewhere else, to see what the optimum kind of place for roof would be. It's going to be a retractable, so that way it can be open or
I
closed.
actually went on that field trip with them to
Did
North
you?
Carolina. And
Okay.
we looked at 2 different types of retractable roof, and both of them were great concepts, but the one that they're looking at is definitely head and shoulders, in my opinion, above the other one. And because the one that they're looking at, it fully retracts, so you'll have a true outdoor pool in the summer, but it'll close itself in on a dome with the full HVAC setup inside and heated and enclosed, so you can use it year round. And it was
So we talked-
very interesting.
An interesting idea, though, thank you for that too. We talked about having more availability for seniors, right, to give them something they can do, exercise at home. I know the Kilmarnock one has, water classes. And they also said that if people are gonna be using only the pool, then there's a different entrance fee. They don't pay the full monthly membership. So bearing in mind, that there are not everybody can afford to belong to the Y, that was one of the things that they were looking at. So I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that I waved the EDC flag along with eating some dinner and drinking some wine.
Thank you, you took one for the team.
I did.
Is that the order of events? Or is drinking wine that's higher on the list?
First, I'm not sure, but, and it was good also to meet some other, there were quite a few people in the community that I hadn't met yet. And some I did know, so that was good, okay. Now, all right, Robert, you're up, and I know we had the ARPA. One thing I didn't ask of you, and I think probably would be helpful along the lines of splitting the duties, I think it's gonna be moving forward, not tonight, but in the future, like important for us to know which actions you're engaged in so that we don't also duplicate.
Sure.
Again, I think we're in a different position now because we've got a full team, of commissioners. And we don't want to duplicate your work. We also don't want to get in your way. And I know you and Drew and I have to sit down and try to figure some stuff out. too,
Yes.
but- All right, your turn, sir.
Yeah, so a lot of things moving forward with the ARPA project status. First of all, the billboard's in. Final video has come out. I've got it right here. I could show it to you all. It's a 30-second clip. Good news is, I think it looks really good. Bad news is, none of our pictures were in there.
Oh, that's okay.
We just don't have good pictures,
That's
but
all right.
they were able to give us some good
Can we
hand
see it? Can we
pictures.
see? Yes,
yeah.
can we see? Can we see?
We can go right to that right now. Hang on just a second. Let me see. Where's my shares? I don't use Zoom much. Well, I can turn let me turn my laptop up around and let you all see it in there. How's that?
I've got it. Yeah, that's right. I still want to go. Thank you.
So again, these are going to be projected on gas stations in Arlington, Woodbridge, Fredericksburg, Richmond, Culpeper, and La Plata, Maryland, for the next 2 months. And it's also going to be in about three.
Pumps?
You know, when you, yeah,
Oh, okay.
exactly. And it's going to be at four to five bar restaurants.
And we own this video, right? So we can keep it for other stuff after?
We own this video.
Okay, cool.
This is on their development website, so it's going to be kind of choppy. Notice we also have the QR code here. The QR code is so we can scan, and you got the Stay Do Eat map, which is updated.
Perfect.
Okay, so here we go.
Oh, can I write something? Wait.
I have it muted. So Scenic Beauty.
Who is that?
Not me.
Can you do that one more time since?
I'll do it one more time. Yep, I'll do it one more time. Yep.
Nice.
I'll send that to everybody after the meeting, so you guys can watch it, Jim. But really good, really
Wait,
good.
Sorry, Melissa has a look on her face.
No, I'm fine. That was just the
Okay.
woman that was walking on the water.
And you thought it was a
I
dude.
have no idea who that was.
Yeah, I thought it was only you. He walked for a little while, but, you know, he got distracted.
So, and we're,
Okay, I'm not saying nobody about that.
You are going to hell.
With respect to the payment for that, payment's complete. The next one is with Leisure Media 360. We've got 2 ads they're going to put for in Virginia.org banner and a Chesapeake Bay Hero header page. And they're going to invoice us April 20th and May 20th. So that will be closed out. The coyote brochure, we're finalizing the brochure. I want to add pictures. I've been talking to Drew about that today. Want to get some updated pictures of the new kayak facilities, see if we're going to have the ability to get new pictures. If not, then we'll just go for
New pictures or new facilities?
new pictures of the
Okay.
new facilities, hopefully. With respect to the kayak facilities, we did release RFP April 2024. Drew, I don't know if you want to jump in at this time and talk
We
about that.
got the bids back yesterday and they were significantly higher than we had budgeted in the operatorium.
Surprise,
Surprise,
surprise.
surprise. I've reached out to, Mike McDowell, I believe is his
Oh,
name,
yeah,
with
yeah.
VTC, Virginia Tourism. Because he would have to approve any changes to our budget at this point. He's willing to let us take any money that we have in the tourism product development section and move it towards, kayak launches. Even with that, with the quotes we got, we'll only be able to get one of the 2 completed. So.
Which one?
Well, that's the question is, so I think, and again, not, because this is an open bid, we can't discuss any of the costs or anything else in an open meeting. Is there one of the kayak launches that would get us? So I think we have an option of adding more traffic to an existing traffic location or creating a new location where new traffic can be created. So in terms of creating water access, is there one that meets the objectives of more open water access? Is there one versus the other that would meet better that objective that was given to us?
So, without mentioning prices, because they're not too far different in what either one costs. At Lodge, you have a better road infrastructure, you already have, and you have, I would say, more parking, but you already have a lot of use there, already from everybody. But it's also closer to restaurants and things in Callio. Rose Landing is right here in Tappahannock. It's a much narrower road with limited parking. The boat ramp at Lodge is much better than the boat ramp at Rose Landing, so very few people use that boat. Yes, sir.
Which came first? The infrastructure that currently exists at the one that's already got everything built? Or did it build over time because it was being used?
I don't know about Rose Landing. I can speak for Lodge. Because it's closer to getting you to the Potomac, because it's close to the marina, and it's a lot of people in the Callio area that launch from there. That sees a lot more action, and also you got people coming from other counties that launch that and get into the Potomac quicker. It's an easier access, easier turnaround, and it's been maintained better. And so the ramp is better. It has 2 docks, a dock on either side for use there. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I feel like that.
What I suspect is that it wasn't born that way. And it became that way because it was being used, not the other way around.
That's a state maintained facility, isn't it?
No.
Lodge isn't?
Lodge, the ones that we had looked at, Glee Point, Lodge, and Rose Landing are all county maintained.
Oh, I didn't know that. So did the county do the little picnic pavilion that's there?
I believe so. Now, they were state maintained at one time, and then they were turned over to the county. So I'm
Okay,
not sure
okay.
what point.
Yeah.
Back to Lodge. When I was in high school and before, and somewhat
This is the
after,
perspective I need.
yes, a lot of high school age and 20s hung out in the Callio area, and a lot of times activities would end up down
At the boat ramp, I did the same thing. You knew where the 2 police officers were in the boat ramp for free.
So it's always had a lot of activity around it. Whether it's still that way now or not,
It is.
But I also
It's,
think,
it's a very active boat ramp.
Right.
It's a very active boat ramp.
but building this kayak, I think Maurice, your question, and Liz may go,
Yeah.
building the kayak launch at Rose Landing isn't gonna bring restaurants.
No,
Right, so I think your question is the launch busy because the restaurants are there, or the restaurants there because the launch is busy? I think that whatever money we sink into Rose Landing isn't for kayaks, isn't going to like bring restaurants. And so the question is, where will the greatest use of the facilities be at Roseland, and where's the greatest economic benefit to the county? Rose Landing, which has none of the amenities and would open a waterway, or Lodge, which has amenities that, right, like you said, it's well used. You both said that. What is the thought of the commissioners?
First, we have to get the boat towed.
Is
That's a separate, discussion.
Oh, wait, this is the one that's got
got
is
the,
this where the dead boat
oh
lives?
crap.
Yes. That's right.
That's
I
right.
understand the owner's got permanent residence down there in Warsaw.
That is, I don't know if his residence, but I've heard that discussion, but that, where the kayak launch is slated to go there, goes right up where the boat is.
So we wouldn't be able to use it until that gets resolved.
No, I mean,
You can
You
launch
would-
from the other side, but.
I mean, you can launch from the kayak
You
launch,
can launch from the ramp.
but, you know, it's like, you walk out the door. If I walked out this door, the boat would be right here, but I'd still be able to launch from right here, off the kayak, it's just gonna be tight. Now,
It's not.
if I was in a boat, big boat, it would be tight. In a kayak, it's not gonna be that tight.
And moving the boat,
Nothing new, Drew, on the removal of it between the county
Well,
and
that was at the
BLRC?
Board of Supervisors
Yeah,
last
that
week. That was Ed Nonis that
that's a different-
discussed it for
yeah.
us.
That's a different boat. But we
Oh, it's a
all-
different boat now?
The one you're talking about, Board of Supervisors, it's in Bridge Creek. That
Oh,
Bridge Creek way.
Sorry,
But
my
this-
bad.
This is a different boat that's at Lodge Landing. That, I mean, it's. They're
So
still,
the only
it's
reason
still
I,
going through the, legal process of getting the title and all straight that BMRC is working on. And we are working with, Lisa Hall at BGC. She's working on a project alongside, I want to say DEQ, but she's looking at finding some other grant funds to possibly get somebody in, move it. We're still looking to see if there's anything we can do through the, BMRC, Bandera vessel program to get money to move that one. It's trying to get all the Ps in a row to make sure we got everything straight that we need.
Right.
The window's closing on getting the ADB money grant, timeline, so we gotta get stuff straight with that. And trying to tie them all together. And the one at Bridge Creek is gonna be the nightmare, but it's the one that is the bigger priority because that literally has a guy whose boat, he can't move. It's sitting, I mean, it's been sitting there since that boat sank right there at the end of his dock. He can't get his boat in or out. It's stuck there.
Okay, so back to this one, sorry.
So back to this one, we're trying to tie them all together if we can, but we just need to get quotes and see how we want to move forward with that.
But what do you guys think about essentially enhancing existing versus creating new? Is that a fair saying for Rose Landing?
The boat ramp gets very little use because the ramp itself needs repair. There's a dock there that's used
Showstopper.
some.
Ramp needs repaired, that's showstopper right there.
Why? For a kayak, it's not. If I'm a kayak
But
person,
it's kind of a,
I don't want to compete with boats.
well, if you got something that's in disrepair, then you've got a liability of some degree, and that's not cool. So, that's Rose Landing. That's the one where the people of this county were born from. At some point, the county is gonna have to invest money in some facilities at some point, that they're not currently planning to. But there's a fine line between doing it now and doing it more strategically later. I think we're gonna have to support the one in Callio.
yeah.
So Calio.
I vote for fine.
The only other question mark we have is getting the final approval on the JPA. Both of them are still sitting in that BMRC for approval. When it was originally put in, they didn't think we were even gonna need a permit for BMRC. And then because of the way it's designed, it's just a little teeny piece that goes into the water that is retractable. BMRC is now saying, was late saying that, yeah, we're gonna need a permit. So that's a little bit behind in advertising. I think, on public comment closes into this week. So we're hoping to have that JPA, both of them, within the next couple of days.
Well, if we don't get one of them, then that makes the decision for us.
Right, so if we don't get it, then preference will be on Lodge. But if we can't get Lodge, then we will default back to Roach.
Okay, that's good for
Is
everybody.
that-
Preference, go with Lodge. If we can't get the permit, then we go the other one.
Is that
All
true?
right.
Drew, just one more question on that. Is there, have you all done any preliminary budget projections on what it's gonna cost to have that boat removed from there? No. No, the only reason I just bring it up for something for you to consider. I had a kind of an off the record discussion with Joey Lynn. I know you know Joey, he's got the equipment and the expertise to probably take care of that. And he's vested in our county here. He might be somebody that you guys want to reach out to locally.
I knew you had mentioned it, that you talked to him about it.
Yeah, I mean, I know if it's gonna have to go out on bid and all that other stuff, but I mean, that guy could have that, he's resourceful enough, he could have that thing out of there half the time anybody else.
He's apparently so busy, he never returns phone calls. I've been
Well,
trying
he
to
returns
return
mine.
Then maybe I need to pay you to help me.
You just can't go and pull it out. There's
Right, we
something
have
else.
to go through a process to
That's
get it all
going on with
straight.
it, yeah.
Do you need, before we get off this topic, do you need a vote on that, or can we just say the sense of the board is, the sense of the commission is, we'd like to go with Lodge Landing for the kayak launch, provided the permit comes in. If the permit doesn't come in, we'll go with whichever one has the permit. Is that okay?
Protocol, take it. Just for,
Okay, so, I'll entertain a motion to use the transferred funds from the ARPA projects to support the build out of one kayak launch, with that kayak launch being at Lodge Landing, provided the permit comes in. If it doesn't, it can be at Rose Landing.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
okay, so the last part of the ARPA, the last part of the ARPA was the interpretive signs. That money's gonna be moved over. You just voted upon that, thankfully, because interpretive sign was a little bit difficult.
And that takes care of then the entire,
That is correct.
congratulations. Thank you. Thank you for running that down.
Yes, so with respect to, yesterday I had a meeting with the Northern Neck Planning District Commission. It was at Callaway Brewing Company. The meeting was with Virginia Clean Cities Incorporated. They're a nonprofit state employee business running out of JMU. And the Northern Neck Planning District Commission, their purpose was, they're trying to do a survey. They wanted to try and explore the feasibility of bringing in charging stations into the Northern Neck area. The purpose behind that is they're saying increase of EV users promotes possibly more money coming into here if we have charging stations available for them.
I'd like
So
to see the data on that.
it's mostly research. Very, very good point about that. Right now, Northern Neck has approximately 222 registered EV vehicles, of which 85 are the plug-in hybrids. And a little trivia about that is, does anybody know where our two charging stations that we currently have today are?
Public? Or just two charging?
Two
stations?
charging stations. Because there's a caveat to it. The answer is Smith Point and Reedville Market.
And one of those is private, right?
So the Reedville Market is, you could use it if you're a
Restaurant.
at the restaurant, correct. Then they had a little, on a side note, so that was it's all a big discovery. They're trying to figure out how they want to go, whether they're going to proceed, see what kind of grant money is available. Callaway Brewing Company, they gave an opportunity for them to talk about what they do. They emerged during the Callao revitalization project. One thing I did not know is there was a community block development grant that was used for the Callao revitalization project. And NNPDC is still using that to pursue other opportunities such as the survey for the housing, and a couple other initiatives too.
And he's
Anyway, yep,
Okay, and I know he's using it for, Jerry said, they're using it for, I think they're revitalizing Skytown.
yes, that's correct. That's correct. One more plug for is, and the other thing about CBC is they've been voted 2 years in a row as one of the best breweries in Virginia.
Who voted?
Pretty impressive.
Okay.
Best brewing in Callao.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Another plug is for the food that was catered there. Wonderful food came from Mom Margaret's House Bed and Breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
Phenomenal place. I talked to her on a side note, she can accommodate meetings for about 10 to 20 people. So that's something if we ever want to go on a road and have a meeting somewhere else, we can look into that too. Ms. Alva Jackson is the innkeeper there. With respect to any questions on that? Okay, for the historical Civil War interpretive signage, it's tough getting a hold of Drew Gruber. He's the guy who's all over, he's worked 6 states. He's going to be here at the end of April, so I'm going to try and meet with him. The intent is to meet with him, Melissa, and the folks from the church, from Howland, to meet at Howland Chapel and kind of get their take. Where do you want to put this interpretive sign? Where is it going to be located? And get approval from the church, the owners of the property, to see if they're in agreement with it. Just thinking out loud, I think the next step after we get that approval is probably have to have a public hearing. I don't know if that's required or not. That's something I'll be working with Drew to see if they'll approve the signage and have it in place there. That's really in its infancy to do that. I have no updates on the email account for the commissioners. I apologize for that. Kind of running through a couple of things. I have an opportunity. I'll talk to you guys later on. One of our neighbors, he's a University of Tennessee student, and he's willing to offer his free services to put him into a summer intern opportunity.
Thank you, because that was on my list of new business to talk about, to see
Okay.
if we could,
I have his
Free is
resume
almost
here. I
there,
can
okay.
pass it to the group right now if you want to take a look at it, and we can discuss it later on at a separate time. But it's not that he'll be here all the time. He does live in our neighborhood, but he's also, his family also lives up in Ashland, but he's a pretty energetic guy, pretty brilliant guy.
well, there may be some things he can do remotely too. Yeah, because that was on the list of things I was thinking of trying to see. I didn't know if any high school.
He's looking for business analytics, also looking at internship to get experience in real world supply chain marketing issues. Anything that he can do to help. If there's any studies we would like him to look into, he'd probably be
Go
willing.
back to the conversation we had with the oysterman and with Chip in terms of the market connection outside of the region. There might be something really useful there.
That'd be really, really good.
And plus some of the stuff we were thinking about with, I mean, we've got the QR code started there.
Yep.
But again, one of the things we wanted to do was look at the tourism and some data. No, this is great. Yeah, everyone take a look at his resume and then that's, because it's tomorrow again, our strategic conversation.
Yeah.
There may be some things in there if he's willing to help out over the summer that we can get a jump start on some of the applicants in there.
Sure. And that's all I have for the update.
Related to that, do we need to make it a public application for anybody that's interested in doing it? So it doesn't set back to the same thing.
Yeah, as long as it's free. I mean.
Yeah, no, I know, but
Yeah,
it's just, instead of just, okay,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
the one, we need,
Yeah.
if
we could put an
that's the way we
announcement
want
out,
to do it,
sure.
we need to do something.
We get 4 or 5 people interested in a free internship, that's good to me.
Just want to make sure we're covered from that perspective.
Thank you.
That's all.
Nothing against that.
No, but if,
Long-
I didn't
Good
even
point.
think people would entertain free one anymore, so that's cool.
His parents made him do it.
You said he lives in Ashland. This is Ashburn.
I'm sorry, Ashford.
Oh, yeah, that's where I live for 25 years.
Oh, okay.
Is that it, Robert, for your corner?
That's it.
All I had was, we've already covered with the kayak launch site stuff. I'm good.
Alright. Well, new business, we don't have anything else because we kind of worked it through with everything else. Anyone else have new business?
I have a question. It's been a few months since the subject of the chamber and their information.
Okay. I have
Yes,
some information.
that's a great question.
So the chamber did apparently have a board of directors meeting, and they have revitalized their website. I would encourage you to look at it and form your own opinion. I was extremely excited when I heard they revitalized it. And,
Once you saw it,
I've never seen you speak with your expressive face like this before.
um,
I want to see the real Karen.
Maybe on a different topic, you don't want to see it on this one.
the Chamber of Commerce is located in San Francisco. Our phone number is a San Francisco area code. The director of the EDC is still Teresa Lambert, and if you'd like to drop any emails to the chamber, you will be emailing San Francisco.
You are joking.
And what was that population again?
Oh, we had a population of like 68 million,
Yeah. It was-
and we had like a couple $1 billion in income. So I suspect what happened, the chamber did get something up. What they're doing is they're registering, they're asking businesses to go there and put their information in, and then they're gonna create a directory from that. So the good news is the chamber is trying to shake the tree to revitalize. I think they probably like the look of that website, which is fantastic, but I'm not sure. Please go check. Perhaps they've updated everything and my information is outdated. I am going to approach, again, there's a vice president that I actually lives in my neighborhood, and so I talk to him frequently, or several times on this topic. I'm going to actually, once we get our strategic plan put together, I'm going to ask them to come here.
good.
And meet with us so they can hear about this. I'm also eager, I know that the county budget is not yet finalized, and so I'm eager to see how the chamber budget looks in comparison to ours, to see if we get some additional funding. Apparently there's a new sign put up at the second visitor center. I haven't actually seen it yet, but I still think one of the things we're gonna wanna do is look at having that visitor center kind of move around, particularly if we want to try to do some things in historic Keysville. So I have had another conversation on that topic, and they did apparently have a board meeting, and they're trying to make some traction because they recognize that county businesses are trying to join the chamber in Lancaster. So
Do we, I know this is gonna sound like a curt question, but it's not intended that way. Do we physically know that they have an operational quorum there, that they actually have real board members?
No.
Well, that's precisely why I sound curt about this, is because, I mean, we've had this discussion with them before. We've discussed as a group that, that they are receiving monies.
$14,000 a year from the
Yeah,
county
absolutely.
From county taxpayers.
I'm,
to do nothing.
I know.
You asked.
I know,
Drew, I'll settle it.
Bring it out, bring it out. This is like having a conversation about, that nobody wants to have a discussion about. I mean, it's, God bless anybody that's listening. I mean, it isn't an issue of hurting people's feeling, it's business. And that has been a non-functional entity going back to when I was renting them an office, and that was 10 years ago. So I guess what I would like to ask is that statutorily, Drew, I think I'm right in this, they are supposed to have an accountable board, right? With officers, right?
Not statutorily, because they're a chamber, which means they're not for profit. So what
Okay,
statute
but they're-
what statute would govern them?
501c3, right?
So then that would mean, right, I have not done the checking yet to see what their tax returns look like and who they're paying. Right, and see, because I think there's the question, there's a couple, and oh, by the way, I'm sorry, there's a new initiative that they've started. The current chamber president, who I believe also owns the buildings to which there's rent paid,
Yes.
has started an educational LLC. And in partnership with the school, I believe they're gonna be awarding scholarships out of the educational LLC. This came in my letter from my chamber, so I think it's great news that they're trying to award scholarships. To your question, Dan, I think one of the questions I have is, from where are those monies coming? I'm assuming it's private funding, it's not gonna be any taxpayer funding. But I don't know
But they're
the
getting,
number.
is it my understanding they're getting $14,000 worth of county funding?
Yes, $14,000 in taxpayer funds.
Okay, and guys, and again, I don't want to sound curt about this,
You're
but
among friends.
look, no one goes in there. Like, I mentioned this discussion to a mutual business person. And, the reply was, why don't they just put some pamphlets at the public library? You'd have more chance of reaching somebody there. What do you say to that? I mean, it's not a very inviting location. I would just like to make a motion. I mean, it can, you can vote against it, but I would like to take a motion that, number one, we direct staff to find out if they are functioning within the guidelines of their LLC operation, that they have, they have complete officers, and that they are actually.
LLC or the 501c3 too.
That's what I'm
Chamber's
saying.
gotta be the
It's probably gonna be a
Can't do the
501c3.
If they formally have a board, if it's a formal board, there are other laws that they need to follow.
Right. And I just want to make sure that, number one, I mean, if we're giving them $14,000 a year for that, 10 years, that's $140,000.
All right, so let me rewind, because I think what I'm hearing you say. I'm using all this things. I think what I'm hearing you say is you would like to request that the county review the economic development funding that is currently going to the Chamber of Commerce to make sure, to ascertain that those funds are being used in accordance with
Their articles were.
And that they are in compliance with the requirements of their 501c3, if that's how they're set up. I mean, I don't know how they're set up. Does anybody here know how they're set up?
I have no idea, but again, I think our nexus is that's economic development funds that are not available to this group.
Absolutely, and
And with all the things that we have, like, for example, if we could, offer $1,000 stipend for a couple interns over the summer, that'd be great, right?
Sure.
So I think the question, if I'm hearing you right, and I think this is something we've talked about, we'd like to request the county look into how those economic development funds are being used and if they're being used appropriately within the confines of whatever governmental statutes are applicable.
Well, yeah,
Can we do that, Drew?
I'll see what I can find out, but I'm gonna ask this question. Is this something that, we'll get the information we can, but is it something that needs to be a motion here? Or is this something that the EDC needs to take to the board as a concern? As they're doing their budgeting cycle so they understand the concern as well, and it's not just left here. Not that I think it would be just left here for the record, but just to make sure.
Would there be anything wrong in you, number one, I guess what I'm asking is that, so we're spending $14,000 a year for the Chamber of Commerce, okay, which is currently located in the old building in County. It used to be the old movie store thing there. So what are we getting for $14,000? Is that $14,000 going, to the individual that owns the building in form of rent? Is it for rent and other things? And if those things are pamphlets, how much do those things cost, and where's the paper trail on it?
I would ask one more question. Is the chamber's use of said building, is that use of that building exclusive to the chamber, or are there other things being?
There's other businesses being in there.
It's a business that has space in the back. There are two businesses, they both have space
Right,
rented to the chamber.
right. And the chamber's office, correct me if I'm wrong, is all the way in the back.
Yes.
It's really not even accessible to,
In spite of
You can
the
use
fact
the
that
back
it says
entrance,
chamber on the
right?
very
Yeah.
front.
yeah, but it's not well marked or anything like that. I mean, if you went in there looking for the Chamber of Commerce, you wouldn't, somebody has to say, there it is back there.
Because the funds are coming from the county, the board of supervisors has never thought to look into this.
Some of their funding comes from the county, and I think we looked at this when you got the information about their budget, but some of it is from dues and other.
Very little of it's coming in.
Well, I was
Because
gonna
the
say,
membership has declined, it's 30, yeah.
The county has a legal right to inquire how the money is being spent.
Sure,
That needs to be
absolutely.
that inquiry, because we don't regulate businesses in the
Right.
county. That request needs to come from the board of supervisors.
yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
so can you please look into, right now, we did, part of our budget request included asks about data, what they had, we wanted to see what the visitor statistics were. If we need to go get those, we can. I think then there's also, a question would be during the budget hearing. Again, we don't know if the county's proposing another $14,000 next year or not, because the budget's not done. So I think it also, when the budget proposal comes out, we all need to look at it. I mean, I know I'll be looking at it for a lot of things, but I'm looking at it for that 14,000. If that 14,000 is dropped and the money that we requested is in our bucket, then I still think it's something we should bring to the attention of the supervisors, particularly because everyone now is focusing on economic development. And it's unclear to me at this point how, over the past 2 years, that $28,000 has returned any economic benefit to the county. Other than apparently there is an employee. So that's,
Is there the 35 members that you said
no,
is?
$35 per member, no. It's,
So we don't know how many members they have.
I don't,
And again, I'm just, I'm not
I would
trying
have to look
to
at
trap
the-
anybody in here. I've been a member of the Chamber of Commerce for years. I
so
was.
we
for-
probably have to look at their there's no plan they post on, I think you'd have to look at, I don't know if their tax returns, I don't know what you'd have to do to find out how many members are. You could ask them, I don't know how many members are, I got my membership letter a while ago, but I haven't looked at it. But it did say they're declining
If the
membership.
board is gonna make a formal request, I would recommend Dan, you speak with Jim Brand, make sure there's not some accident record here that we don't want to go over.
Good point. I'll ask him about it. And Drew, could you still just look
I'm still
into it?
looking what information I can find.
Yeah, because here's the only thing that, and again, that they used to produce. I haven't seen it, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but they used to, this was going back a decade or more, when, it was under different management at that time, they used to produce, the Chamber of Commerce used to produce a goods and services guide.
They still do.
That was pretty complex, it was pretty
They still
good.
do.
Vacation home was listed in that.
Yeah,
It's still
yeah.
produced,
yeah.
all the members are,
$14,000 produced.
it costs a lot of money to produce. And that was one of the things I think that the county was supplementing, which is very interesting to me because it's a chamber guide. So it was produced, it didn't get produced for the 3 years, like 19 to 21, it got produced in, the last one was, last year it was done. I don't know if they're gonna be able to do it again.
Did you say it was 14?
I would be
Oh.
It's-
Okay.
still.
I just want to make sure. All right.
It.
Yeah, I'll check with Supervisor Brandon. Drew, if you can just poke around and see. And, look, I got no axe to grind with anybody that's doing the right thing, but if we're subsidizing around on the building, I think this committee needs to look at it, make recommendations as applicable to the board of supervisors for redirecting that money, however that pays out. I don't think we're doing anybody any services by pretending that there's not something that's questionable there.
I don't disagree at all. All right, we have no citizens for citizen engagement.
Anybody online?
No, yeah, so we're clear on that front. So tomorrow we have our strategic planning session.
Come
And,
hungry.
okay,
Yes, sir.
Come
is there
hungry.
any last round before we take a motion to adjourn?
You want that to be adjourned or carry over to tomorrow?
I don't know, what,
I mean, I'm fine either way, but if you want to, you may carry it
Tomorrow,
over.
your meeting tomorrow, not under the Open Meetings Act, so you don't need to do that.
okay, so I'll take a motion to adjourn at 7:33.
So move.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. John, you're gonna be able to come tomorrow.
Thank you, thanks
I'm leaving
everyone.
for London tomorrow.
Oh,
Business or
So-
pleasure?
Later.